I'm going to take you off the screen, and then I'm going to put you in. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button as you come in. As well, if you want to share us out, share us out. This is going to be a night of a great discussion. I'm going to wait a few minutes for someone to come up in the chat, and then we're going to go ahead and get into it. Just allow me a few moments here. Just allow me a few moments here while we allow a few people to come in. Hey, Trisha, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming, Trisha. I'm going to introduce our guest in just a few moments while we wait for a few more people to come in, and then we're going to get into it. Okay, so what we're going to do, guys, is we only have maybe an hour, so I'm going to just go ahead and introduce someone and bring them in. His name is Joseph Wison. He is called Love and Unscripted. Just allow me a moment while I get him in. I'm so sorry. Oh, my computer is messing up. Patient. I got you. Okay. Welcome in, Joseph.
Hey,
Welcome
Monica.
in. Thank
Hey,
you so
thank you
much
for having me.
for coming.
No problem.
Um.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, can you hear me? I can. I'm sorry. Welcome in, Joseph.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Um. Just allow me one. You hear an echo in the back? You
No,
hear
I don't.
echo? Okay.
No.
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get into this interview. I'm I'm so sorry. My computer is
Hey,
just
isn't that how it always happens? You go to do something and then all of a sudden it just stops working. Like I've been there.
yes, like I'm ready to do this interview.
You know,
Yes.
it's funny. The first time I used StreamYard,
Uh-huh.
I recorded a whole podcast. Well, I thought I did, and I didn't even hit record. I was just going and talking. The guest was going and
Really?
talking, and it was the one day that they said, "Oh, we had a glitch with our record button, so nobody could push it." So,
Really?
hey, tech is supposed to make things easier, but you know
I
how it goes.
know. I know. I to lose you. Hold on just a minute. This is so the first question that I'm
Uh-oh, think we lost her. But I'm sure she's going to jump back in. What's up, everybody who's in the chat? What's up, everybody? Hello, hello. So we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, so I'm pretty sure she'll jump right back in a second. How are you guys doing on Friday? The weekend's here. Gonna see if we can get her back in. Hello, everybody. Hello, blogs and fiction. Please forgive me. I'm terrible with names, so if I butcher anyone's name, please forgive me. I see Trisha. I see Patricia. How are y'all doing? We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, so we're trying to work it out. Give us a moment. I think StreamYard has decided to go on break for the weekend as well. Yes, please like, share, subscribe.
Okay, Joseph, I'm so sorry. I'm here. I'm back. I'm so sorry.
There we go.
Thank you for holding it down for me.
Oh, no
I'm
problem.
so sorry. Like, my computers, like, I need to give you a new computer. This is the main reason why. So let's go ahead. Hello, everyone in the chat. Mods, hold it down. Please hold it down, mods. Most of y'all are mods, so just hold it down for me because I don't know. I'm just going to, you know, I'm just, first of all, Joseph, can you tell me about yourself?
Sure. So I'm just a person who loves tech stuff. I love my wife. I love the people I serve.
Right.
I'm just a people person. I love
Okay.
to laugh. I will probably throw a couple jokes. I just love to
Okay.
laugh. That's just something about me.
Okay. Great. So, where did you attend school? And tell me something about like your childhood, where you went to school, and
Oh,
things like that.
sure. Well, I have to go ahead and represent for what I consider to be one of the most prestigious HBCUs in the country. I went to Tennessee State University, so I always have to
Really?
represent for them. Absolutely. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I got my master's degree at Liberty University, and I'm currently working on my doctoral degree in marriage and family therapy right now at North Central. So that's that part. Some about me as a childhood, I was just a goofy kid. I talked a lot in
Hmm.
class, so it's just natural that I love doing podcasting and stuff like that. I was very just jokester. And I'm
Hmm.
actually kind of scared to have kids because I know it's gonna come back on me twofold. Like my parents said, I used to prank them all the time. So I just
Really?
yes. And listen, it's gonna come back. Like it's gonna come back some kind of way, and I'm not ready for those problems yet. But I'm just someone who loves people. I think that's the other thing. I'm very competitive. I don't like to lose at anything. So if game nights are like the Super Bowl for me, I want to win
Oh.
every game. I don't know if anybody in the chat loves games, but I love playing games. And when it comes to games, there is a winner and a loser all the time. I don't do constellation prizes or anything like
Do
that.
you do that to your children as well?
I
Your
don't have
children?
any, I don't have any children yet, but once I do,
Okay.
the only way they win is they have to win. I'm not letting them win.
Oh. Well,
I'm the
I'll be
dad
kind of mad at
blocking
you
the
because, like, if like, because I know your wife be like, well, you know what I'm saying, just because I'm your wife, you should just let me win sometimes, just you know,
nah.
you should let me win sometimes. Okay, so I know you do have a podcast, and as well, I know that you have Love and Unscripted as
Mm.
your Instagram page. What made you do the Instagram page, and what made you do that podcast?
Yeah, so social media for me is a great way to get out your message to the masses. Like
Hmm.
I live in Tennessee and there's only so many people that I can reach on a daily basis in Tennessee.
Hmm.
But with the emergence of technology and social media, I'm able to share what I believe in my message with people all over the world. And the
Right.
reason I chose to do Love Unscripted is because I don't like to say hopeless romantic. I like to say I'm a hopeful romantic, which means I
We
believe
all are.
that, yeah, that love is something that's beautiful, it's
Right.
transformative, and it's healing. And I
Hmm.
believe putting out positive information out there about love is what the world needs, not all the necessarily the think pieces or the negative memes, because those are always going to be around. We need to see positivity. Like we need to
Right.
see real, like practical applications of love for a long period of time. Like for
Mhm.
me, that's why I wanted to also do the podcast, because the podcast was a way for me to have conversations with people
Mhm.
in my age range about love and relationships. Because truth be
Right.
told, we're already having the conversations, but what's
We are.
happening is we only talk to our people, our own friends about our relationships. But guess what?
Mhm.
All of the solutions that we may need for our problem may not be in our own friend group. So if we're able to have little conversations with other people, and through my podcast, I allow people to listen in on the podcast and on our conversations
Mhm.
so that they can get tools for dating challenges that they may be facing. So that's kind of why I
Right.
started that. It's my baby. I love it. I'll do it till the day I'm dying. I'm gray in the head and gray in the beard. So that's just one of my passions.
Well, as I've been following you, you do put out some great quotes on Instagram, and I enjoyed. I got to go to the podcast. I haven't went to the podcast yet, but I am going to go to the podcast and listen to it. It seems like you just put it out there. It's like you put it out there. And it's like straightforward. It's nothing you can't get out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I appreciate that. I
Oh,
do.
no problem.
Um, so you are a family and marriage therapist.
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell us how you did that and what
Sure.
are you?
Sure. So it came from me wanting to impact people in a practical way
Mhm.
that goes beyond just me giving advice. So
Mhm.
before I actually went to grad school, I worked at a nonprofit organization where I was helping kids with after school enrichment. And I was
Mhm.
talking to parents, I was talking to students, and it would always happen that the students would start to disclose stuff to me that was happening in their life that was really deep. And I recognized very early that I don't have the skills to walk you through this process or to even advise you on what you should do. So what I decided to do was, instead of always turning people away, I said, let me go get some extra education in this area
Mhm.
so that I can be knowledgeable, so that I can have the scientific and the best practices for how to
Mhm.
deal with mental health challenges, or how to deal with socioeconomic challenges, or how to even deal with relationship challenges. So I went ahead. I didn't get into grad school the first time, and it kind of
Mhm.
like discouraged me. But through perseverance and prayer, I was able to get in the second time, and I literally like blew that program out the water. And I
Okay.
loved it. It was what I was meant to do, is what I was put here to do. And so that's what I do now. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I help families. I love family therapy. Some people don't like it because there's so much going on, but I love like the unpredictability and just the different aspect of it versus just doing like one-on-one counseling.
Okay. Well, great. Can you tell me about a time you helped a client like open up or and how did you accomplish them?
Yeah, so I like to make people comfortable before we get into talking about heavy, deep stuff. So my conversations are very much like if you met somebody like at school, or if you just met somebody like, hey, how are you doing? Tell me about yourself. I usually allow my clients to be the expert in the room by telling me about their life. Like, tell me about yourself. What do you like to do? And from that, I pull on different stuff that I may relate to, or something that's going on in the world, but just some way to make them comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one client I had, he just was like, he just didn't want to talk. He just, whatever it was, he just didn't want to talk. And so one day
Mm-hmm.
he came in with an anime shirt on. And I happened to be an anime watcher. And so I was like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, what are you doing with a Naruto shirt on? He's like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know what Naruto is? And so from there, we just started having a conversation about anime. And then I was able to transition into why he was there, what it was that he was wanting to work on. And that was like one of those kind of easy ways I was able to help somebody open up. And it's really just by talking about them and listening.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, we appreciate, well, thank you for answering that question. The next thing is, can you tell us about a time you had an angry client and how did you make progress with them? Like someone that's very angry about maybe a breakup, maybe, their husband or somebody may have left them, or something happened in the family that really hurt them and they are very upset. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I've had multiple situations where I'd
Hmm.
have a parent who's a single parent and their ex or the child's father or mother were not living up to their expectations and
Hmm.
was not coming to pick them up on the weekend, was either late on child support, or they would just simply make a promise to their child and not keep it. And so I remember one family in particular, one thing that we had to do to kind of reduce the anger is actually admit that you are angry and that is where you're at in this moment. Because what sometimes we can do is like we tend to look past the anger and just feel it versus acknowledging, okay, I'm angry. What is it about this situation that I'm angry about? And then once you go deeper into that, you can start to say, hey, okay, when this happens, this makes me feel this way. I don't like when I'm this upset because I can't communicate with my child's other parent in a way that brings about cohesion and that does not also upset the child. So what you do is acknowledge your feelings, figure out what's behind them, especially with anger, and start kind of processing what are some things you can do to better manage that, because the outcome of your anger is often decisions that are very hasty, that
Hmm.
are not in the best interest of the child, and in some instances can get you in legal trouble. So you don't want to do that. So just slowing that process down and helping them see it for what it is the breakdown where people are able to get like the most change.
Thank you. Because, me myself, like, thank you for saying that because, like, I guess, me, I'm a single parent and some of the things you was just saying kind of resonate with me.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you. Um, if before I continue on, he is open to any questions you guys may have. Can you please, any question that you have, we will wait till the end of the live when we get through finish with the questions, and then if you guys have any questions, he's open to answer some of you guys' questions if you have any. The next thing is, you we know you worked with who do you prefer to work with, families or couples, married couples, or
Both,
whatever?
because a lot of times in families, it still involves the parents.
Hmm.
So I like family, but I also enjoy couples as well. I do both. It's
Okay.
hard to put. It's like, which child do you love the most? It's like I can't pick between the two,
Yeah.
but I enjoy both pretty much equally. I'm not the
Right.
biggest fan of just individual, even though I will
Hmm.
do it. But I just love the dynamics of multiple people in the room.
Great. So the next question that I have for you, what would you consider to be the leading causes of mental health issues today and in
Ooh,
our community, in
ooh,
our community?
there's literally too many factors to name, and I'm not trying to like cop out of saying what's the main one, but any situation can potentially cause a mental health challenge. So some people are born with mental health illnesses that are passed down
Hmm.
genetically, but
Hmm.
there are also situations where any type of event can be viewed as traumatic to a person and cause them to go into depression, cause them to have anxiety. Like I've had people who have witnessed car wrecks that were never in a car wreck themselves, but they have PTSD from it. And so
Hmm.
there's literally a crazy amount of possibilities. And what I think, if I want to narrow it down, it's situations and instances that we did not plan for. I'll say that. There's situations and instances that we did not plan for, things that happen to us and are in different experiences. Because
Hmm.
literally anything, as we're seeing now, can cause trauma. I've even read of where a man had really bad PTSD and social anxiety, but it stemmed back from him having a negative dodgeball experience when he was a kid. So,
Wow.
so we would naturally say dodgeball causes mental health issues, but it's
Right.
the situation and what he experienced during that time, which led him to feel a certain way, which had him to think about the situation in a certain way and caused him to have those challenges. So it's literally anything. And that's why I try to advocate and tell people, like, there's no, like, you can't say that something didn't cause someone to have depression or mental health challenges, because anything can literally cause it. So yeah, that's what I would say on that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for answering. Dodgeball experience. Wow. Like, it's crazy, but
Yeah,
I
and you wouldn't
understand.
even think of that. But
No.
for as someone who's an adult, if you look back, there are instances like we hear a lot of people who were scared to go swimming. They saw somebody either drown or they were just thrown in or pushed in the water as a kid.
Mhm.
Those type of experiences shape and mold who we are as adults. And
Mhm.
so it's crazy to me. I'm always fascinated because I'm always learning about mental health and all of these things. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering the question. So how long does couples therapy take?
This is one of the number one questions I get. And here's the thing. I tell everybody healing takes as long as it takes. There's literally no time frame on how quick we can get something done,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to having two people who may be at odds trying to get back on the same track. Depending on what the situation and circumstances are, it's going to be difficult to say, hey, we can get this done in 6 weeks. That may be rushing it for one person to be able to, one, learn the skills to come along, and then two, to apply the skills consistently. So those are two aspects that it's hard to put a time frame on. But I mean, I know plenty of couples who go yearly and just go for a checkup.
Mhm.
They go every year just to say, hey, is there anything that we're experiencing? You go 3 weeks and say, hey, is there anything that we need to improve on? How are you feeling about this? Okay, the kids are about to leave the house. How are we feeling about being empty nesters? It's a beautiful and amazing way to also do like a check on your relationship. It doesn't always have to be something going wrong, or you don't have to be on the brink of divorce. It can literally be an the therapist in that sense is an objective sounding board.
Mhm.
Send stuff out, see how you're thinking about things, and it's a great way to be able to make adjustments. But as far as how long does it take, healing takes as long as it takes. And once it's run its course, once you've gone through the process, every
Mhm.
bit of the days will be worth it.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering that. Now, let me ask you this question. This is just some relationship questions that I came up with. You know, the first thing that, okay, say for instance, what would you tell someone? And this is someone that is heartbroken, and they say they want their lick back because, um, say for instance, they was in a relationship maybe 5 years. You know, they helped the person build that person up, and they said asked them to marry them, and then all of a sudden it goes to nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and you're heartbroken, and then you find out they've been cheating, you find out they've been lying, and then you move out, and then they say, "I want my lick back. I'm hurt."
So what I would ask them, and I would go down this line of questioning of what does that do for you? Like
It
what
if if I have felt that way, and I will be honest, it just so you can feel the pain that you done gave me. Honestly,
Mhm. And here's another thing. What is it about that pain that makes you want to pass it on to the person who did it? Like what does that, like what do you gain? Yes, they get to feel it, but for you, what does that do for you? Because I would say you're not someone who just wants people to feel pain. What is it behind that that is fueling that you need to feel what I felt? And a lot of times people tend to lean sometimes. It just depends. It's like I can't give a clear answer on that, but it's loss. You lost something, and being able to make someone feel the same thing, it can feel good, but it's more so about you expressing your hurt more than it is about I need to get this lick back and make them feel this pain. There's something else behind it, because naturally people aren't just I want to hurt somebody because they did something. It's something unique about what you invested. How do you feel about all that time you lost? How do you feel about what you thought you guys had? How do you feel about now your social setting where you guys used to be seen together and now you don't? What is it about that loss that is coming up for you? And that's a whole exploration thing. It's going to be different for every person. People want to lick back for different reasons. But what I always tend to go is, you're not a person that just wants to hurt people. And that's what, like, I want my lick back. You say, oh, well, I want them to feel the pain that I want to feel. Okay, I can understand that, but you're not someone who just wants to hurt people. I've yet to find someone who is just like, I just want to hurt someone just for the sake of hurting. Even if something happened to me, just to hurt someone in spite of, what is the outcome of that? And it's always going deeper and digging to see what are those things that are connected to that as an expression of my hurt. What is it I'm really trying to get out and say?
Okay. So I'll ask him more once he'll finish it off at the end in your question that you have. So the next thing that I have for you is, can you tell that a marriage is doomed by meeting a couple?
Excuse me?
Can you tell that a marriage is doomed, like there's no, like it's not going to work by meeting a couple?
No, because there's no way to know just by meeting them what their habits are, what systems do they have in place for dealing with problems, for dealing with triumphs. There's no way to tell just by meeting somebody. The more time you spend with them and the more that you hear what their philosophy is about life and how they view their relationship, that way you'll be able to really tell. The longer you're able to see what they value in the relationship and how they operate in it, because the operation is what's going to determine the longevity of it. If your tire is flat, you know for sure that you're not going to go somewhere. You're not going to be able to go a great distance. If your mindset is, oh, we'll just let this tire flat when it goes flat and we'll just see where it goes, versus, hey, this tire is flat, we need to figure out how we're going to solve this. You can tell that car, that vehicle, that trip is going to go a long way, versus how someone chooses to handle the flat tire. So just off of first glance, as a therapist, I really don't like to put judgments on people just from meeting them, because you'll be surprised how many people can actually make a turn once they actually hear each other, once they're able to understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish together as a couple. You'll be surprised what people can do.
Okay. Well, thank you for that answer. Welcome in everyone once again that has come into the room. Make sure you guys, if you have not hit that like button, hit that like button, please. The next question that I do have for you is, what advice can you give a couple that is having communication issues with every discussion leading into a argument?
So what I would say is, when you guys are trying to communicate in a way that the other person can hear you. So that doesn't necessarily mean completely switch it up, but the way people receive information is always different. So learn how your partner best receives information and give them the information in that way. You may be a very blunt and straightforward person with how you're communicating, but they may need to be eased on into the conversation. So if you're noticing that anytime you guys have a conversation, it always leads in a blow up, start with not the technical stuff. How are you delivering? How is this conversation initiated? Learn how the conversation initiated. How are you guys talking to each other? Also, active listening. Are you actually hearing what I'm saying? Because a lot of times when things are heated, and I've even been guilty of this, when you're really passionate, you're sometimes thinking about what you can say next. So that's going to be a really big breakdown in the conversation if I'm only hearing what I need to respond to. Okay, you said that. That was definitely not true. Let me go ahead and get my rebuttal. Like, you have to be able to gauge that. And so for being able to have better communication first, you have to be able to say, is my delivery coming across in a way that they can receive it? Because if you really want them to hear what it is you're saying, you may have to tweak how you approach the conversation, how you start it, and how you say it. But also, a lot of times when there's a lot of arguments and people are just going back and forth, there's very little listening. And through active listening, being able to reflect and say, hey, what I'm hearing you say is you don't like when I put the trash in the front door. You prefer me to go ahead and take it out all the way to the curb. Being able to reflect that slows the conversation down, and people are actually able to hear each other. And those are just a few steps that could potentially change the direction of any type of conversation you're having.
Okay. I know, like me myself, like my delivery be wrong. I'm talking about I be meaning well, but my delivery be wrong. I guess because they say I have a more of aggressive persona, I guess, and I'm blunt, and so it's kind of come off as rude.
And I've heard
But I
that a
be
lot.
meaning
Like,
well.
I know, like my wife is the same way. She'll come off very straightforward, and sometimes people who did not grow up in an environment where people are very blunt with them, it comes across that way. I always say there's nothing wrong with how you're delivering it. The person receiving it just isn't used to that style. So I always put the role back, the responsibility back on the person who's trying to get their message across to kind of change up or shift their delivery so that the person that they're trying to communicate with can actually hear them. Because the goal is to get your point across or the information to them. If they shut down because of your delivery, then you're not going to be able to accomplish your goal no matter what it is. And that's in personal life, that's in business, that's like in everything, like you won't be able to. So sometimes we have to tone it down for the sake of being able to accomplish a goal.
All right, thank you. The next question that I have is, um, what advice would you give a couple who has fallen out of love and wanted to get the spark back in their marriage, relationship, marriage?
Ooh-wee. Man, so usually when I hear people say they've fallen out of love, there's a lack of deeper intimacy. Intimacy is not just sex, it's not just the physicality, it's the genuine connection that you have with somebody. And when people say I'm out of love, what they're really saying is I no longer have that feeling of closeness to you. And the great thing is there are many strategies and tools and therapeutic processes that you can go to build that intimacy back. There's a great book called, I forgot who the author is, but it's Having Conversations That Matter. Really talking to each other about things that matter, not just to you, but to the other person. The asking them about things that they're interested in actually builds intimacy. And think about it, a lot of times the longer you're together, you start to not you can't fall on the infatuation and the very ooh goo goo gaga. It has to start getting really deep. It has to go beyond the surface. And so a lot of times when people, especially married couples or just any couple who's been together for a long time, that's what usually happens. But the great thing is going deeper in that emotional connection. Have intentional dates. You'll be surprised how many people don't have intentional dates where they say, no matter what happens, come rain or shine, on Wednesday, we are going on a date at 8:00. Very few people do that, but having a consistent date night is one of the proven strategies for building that intimacy in your relationship.
That's deep. Thank you. The next thing is
I know. No comment. No comment.
Hold on. Okay, I'm back together. Okay, I'm back together. Okay, so the next question that I do have: what advice would you give if a couple asks, shouldn't their partner know what the other partner needs after being together for a certain amount of time?
If only, like, if we could figure out a way to mind read, whoever can do that is going to be like a billionaire. But the thing is, even though you're together for a long time, there's no way to, for a fact, know what someone's feeling, thinking, and needing at any given time. For one, we're always changing. You are not the same. Listen, nobody is the same in 2020 as they were in 2019. So what you need is actually going to be different as time goes on. The main thing is for everyone to be willing to voice their needs. Like you have them, be willing to voice them. And it's your partner's role to, when you do express them, to in some kind of practical way, try to meet those needs. But to say that someone should know that I need a hug right now is actually unfair. Like, tell somebody that you would like a hug right now, that you want some FaceTime with them to be able to talk and recap throughout the day. But to just say that we've been together 5 years, so you should be able to look at me or read me and say that, hey, I need this, that's unfair. That's unfair. But what we can do is be aware that everyone does have needs and check in. If you feel like your partner's not checking in enough, that's something that you could say, hey, I'd love for you to check in and see what it is I need. And a lot of people have a problem with that because of the assumption that, well, you should already know. That's really hard to do for anybody. So I would say just figure out a way to be able to verbalize your needs. And if you feel like your partner isn't inquiring enough, tell them that, hey, could you check in with me a little bit more? And that's a sure way that your partner can understand what it is you need.
Great. The next question that I do have is, what advice would you give a couple if they wanted to add an additional person to the bedroom to spice things up? So I know that's kind of like putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but here's the great thing. Like, as a therapist, I don't have to make decisions for people. I ask them, how do you guys feel about that? Is this something that both of you genuinely want to do? It's not my role to say what is right for somebody or what is wrong, but my goal as a clinician is to say, hey, is this something that you guys feel brings you closer together? Is this something that everybody is comfortable with? Have you guys discussed all the possibilities of what this could bring about in the future for you guys? Like, that's all I do in those situations. And usually the couple amongst themselves, they may not bring it back up. They may choose to go ahead and do it. But either way, my only goal is to say, for both people, are both people comfortable? Does everybody feel like this is something they want to do? Because there's nothing worse than it. And it doesn't matter what it is, going to your in-laws' house when you don't feel like doing it. Making someone do something that they don't want to do always causes a divide and a rift in the relationship. So you don't want to do anything, no matter what it is, to cause a division if you don't have to.
Right. Though I know a lot of people be wanting to ask that question, and I'm like, I'm gonna ask it.
Yeah, and think about it. Like, times are becoming way more, I don't even know if it's progressive, but people are more open with it. And that's like, there are plenty of people who are in that lifestyle, and that's okay with them. I have no problem with it. I don't knock it. But when people come into therapy and they're like, hey, is this something that we should do? It's not up to me to decide what you should do in your marriage. But you guys should talk about this and say, hey, is this something that is beneficial for both of you as a couple? So I always encourage people to think about that, weigh the pros and cons, and then make an informed decision for yourself.
Okay. The next thing I have is what advice would you give a newly married couple?
Ooh, that's a really good question. What I would say is, ooh, this is a good one. The main thing would be continue to date each other, talk about everything that you want and need continuously. Just because you're in the honeymoon phase doesn't mean that you can leave some things that are not intentionally done or intentionally thought about. Like, really be intentional with those formative years, because those habits that you start in year 1 are going to carry and going to be there in year 5. So you want to start good, healthy relationship habits, communicating. How do you handle arguments? Be real intentional about those things. Like, talk about just literally that first year. Make it how you want it to be for the long run. Don't just go and have fun and be in the thrill of being newly married. But if you want to really build that, like, to be strong, start putting some big foundation blocks for what you want your life to be like in the future. And I think that's so big, because we live in a culture that is kind of like, well, we'll just go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just go with the flow in business. You got to have a business plan. Like, you can't just in school just go with the flow. You have to pick a path and a career that is going to align with that. Like, it's very intentional. So my main thing for newlyweds, new couples, like, be intentional about what it is that you want your relationship to be like, and then put the processes in place to make it that way.
Okay. The next thing is, what advice would you give a couple that is having issues with trust? Like, I'm gonna put it more in this perspective for you. Okay, like, one has been used for their money, and the other one has been used for, not used, but like being mistreated. And then it's like the trust is nothing. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So the really big thing with trust, especially if you're the one who has trust issues, is to verbalize that. Verbalize if you're together and someone has done you wrong, telling them how what they did made you feel versus continually to beat them down about not
Mm-hmm.
doing what it is going to be more productive. And so once you verbalize how it made you feel, you can also make a request of what can be done to allow you to trust again. And guess what? It's okay to not know what that is initially, but to say, hey, in the future, if there's something that will allow me to build trust, I'd like for this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's really big. And sometimes people who have trust issues don't feel like they can request that. But I want to encourage people to actually say that, like, hey, this is what will allow me to trust you again. And it's the responsibility of the other partner to hear that and to see what it is that they did and how it impacted them, and be able to meet them where that is. And here's another thing. If you're dating and you're having a lot of trust issues, you then have to evaluate, is this something that's going to be long term?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not, quote unquote, locked in marriage, you have a better opportunity to where, if this is a habit that keeps happening and it's causing you to, like, not trust a lot of people rather than just the person who did you wrong, then that relationship is not healthy for you. And if it's not healthy for you, it's going to cause you to be a person that you don't want to be. So go ahead and verbalize what your trust issues are, but also be willing to say, hey, this is what I need in order to build trust back. And if that person doesn't meet you where you're saying you need, then that is evidence for how invested they are in actually trying to earn your trust back.
Thank you. Okay, the last question that I have, then we're going to open the chat. Um, what, in your opinion, and this is your opinion, one thing I always tell my people in the chat, we all respectful, and we can give each other's opinion and be respectful. So everyone, he's going to give his opinion. please be respectful. We all can have a dialogue and be respectful. So, in your opinion, what is the leading cause of marriages ending with divorce?
Who not being able to come to an agreement on how the marriage can actually be repaired. So no matter what the problem is, when the two people can't agree that we're going to make this work, that's going to automatically lead towards that road of divorce. And this is why I say that, because it doesn't matter if it's infidelity, if it's how we're raising our children, if it's our religious beliefs or anything. If two people can't agree and determine what direction they want to go, especially as a couple, when you're trying to build a connection and you're going through life with somebody, if you can't agree on that, then it's going to be hard to live. It's going to be hard to exist in their presence, because there's always going to be that area of friction. And so, especially like when it comes to divorce, when people come to therapy or they're going through mediation or anything, there's always a split when they're on both sides. They agree that they can't agree on how to fix this thing. And when that happens, that's the leading cause. It's not just because infidelity happens doesn't mean that a marriage is doomed and that it's not going to work. Just because stealing happens doesn't mean that. Just because communication was poor, that's not going to be necessarily the leading cause. It's when people say, hey, whatever this problem is, we can't figure out a way to resolve it together. So we definitely need to go our separate ways so that we can be the better versions of ourselves. And so that's what I see one of those leading causes be.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joseph, for your opinions, and thank you for answering all my questions. I'm going to open you. Are you open to answering a few questions?
Let's do some.
Okay. So I'm going to allow them to come on the live, y'all, because and if you guys have any questions, put them in the chat, or if you want to come up and ask the question on your own because it may be too much to write, then there is the link. All I ask is please be respectful. And you know what I'm saying? I appreciate him coming up here just giving his best answers as possible, and I appreciate you, Joseph.
Oh, no problem.
But I know that Toy's World, she was saying that she wants your real opinion on mental health issues on today. She said that you kind of sugarcoated it. So can you just tell it like it is?
Yeah, and the reason I gave that answer is because literally anything can be the cause of a mental illness. Like when you're in the chair with somebody and they tell you the situation that caused them to be where they're at, and they have a clear diagnosis, I can't say that that's not a cause. And with there being so many causes, like for instance, there may be a time where back during the World War II times, there was a lot of PTSD. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't also other stuff happening. And so if you want a blanket statement and say mental illness as a whole, there's literally anything that can be a cause for it. So there is no leading cause. If you were to say what particular group, now we can narrow down. If it's women, then we can go look and see what's the leading cause for women age 30 and under in
okay. Well, let me say this. In your opinion, with women under 30 and under, what is the leading cause of mental illness?
Honestly, I don't know. I can't speak to that. I would have to research that and give the information. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Well, you're keeping it real.
Yeah, I don't.
So, but I don't think anybody have any questions. Do you have anything that you want to say, Joseph?
Just the only thing I like to encourage that relationships can work. You just got to find the right person, and you have to be the right person. And I'm a big advocate for self-love, and self-love being the foundation from which you start to look for somebody that matches your energy, your spirit, and your life goal. So without that, I encourage people not to date until you love yourself. until you know who you are and what it is you're trying to do in life. That way, when people come into your life, you're not swayed, you're not easily pushed around, and you'll meet someone who is actually going in the same direction as you, and you can build the life that you actually want together.
Ooh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Well, what do you have to say about uh, uh, the positive pusher said, do you do virtual counseling?
So right now I do, but I'm not taking any new clients. I'm actually, like I said, I'm in grad school, so I'm only working with a school in my area. But once that's all done, I am going to open back up and do virtual counseling and things of that nature. But right now, since I'm in grad school, I got to slow that part down.
Okay. So Christine says, selfless is not submitting to another's will. It's called compromise to make it work. So what do you think about that?
No, compromise, you need to have compromise. Like, if you're in a relationship, one person can't always be losing. It's no fun to be in a relationship where the other person always gets their way. You don't grow as a couple that way. You don't grow in life that way if you only get your way. We call those people brats. We call them spoiled people who only get their way and don't compromise. And people don't like being friends with them. They don't like being associated with them. They're just not fun people to be around. So compromise is definitely necessary, not just in relationships, but in all areas of your life in order to be successful.
Okay. Well, what do you have to say about long distance relationships, and how do you feel about online dating?
Long distance relationships can work, have worked, and I think they'll continue to work. Social media, I think it's what you make of it. It's like with any tool, like a hammer is not naturally used to kill somebody. It's used to build a house. But if you use it for the wrong way, then it can be detrimental. Same thing with social media. I don't think social media is damaging or ruining the relationship and dating space. I think it's actually how people are using it, because there are success stories. There are also horror stories. It's literally, how are you using it? Are you intentional about how you're using it? And when you are intentional, especially for what your goals and what your vision is for how you want to go about in relationships, you'll be able to do that.
That's thank you for that answer. I'm trying to ask you because I wanna make sure that, you know what I'm saying, everyone's able to answer whatever questions they want to ask. So what do you say about, what can I say about, well, let's say family issues. What if um some things from the past that you haven't gotten over, and you want to have a family want to sit down and have a conversation about it, but it seems as though no one is willing to take accountability in the parts they played in, like a hurt, or say for instance someone has been raped,
Mm-hmm.
and they say such and such touched me, but their mom didn't believe it. So how would you take, how would, you know, and they sit down and they have a conversation, how would you go about getting the mom to recognize the hurt, or the father, the parent, or whatever, that
Mm-hmm.
such and such did to me?
That's a really complicated situation, because especially from a family therapy model, what we'll do is they'll have a conversation about it, but it has to be different individual conversations. So talking to mom in a non-pressure situation to see where she at, what is she really feeling, and then whoever the child is, whoever was raped, talking with them, figuring out how they felt about it and what it is they're needing. And then me being the mediator, almost kind of facilitating a conversation based on what I know they're both feeling, to be able to have a conversation about that, because that's a very tough situation and people are going to need different things. And if people aren't able to be accountable, it's hard to bring about that healing. So it's a really hard, that's a tough question because there's so many different things.
Because like, say for instance, like I have like be watching TV shows and I'll be like, like say for instance, your father done touched you. How can you and they want forgiveness? Like how can you go to counseling and we work on building our family back and I know that my father has touched me inappropriately or my mother has touched me inappropriately. How could we heal from
You're asking really tough questions that don't have simple answers. So
I know. I just be thinking.
It's good, but these are individualized kind of things, and so a blanket answer would not do it justice.
Okay.
And I'll actually defer from especially stuff like that and say, how would you do it therapeutically? Because there's so many variables that you got to consider. And my mind is going blank with those because there's information that I would want to ask about the situation and scenario that I don't have. So I can't affect
it. It's just a question that
I would definitely say if that's a situation, go to therapy and have that conversation. And a therapist can walk you through what your goal is for it. If you're wanting a person to apologize versus someone wanting to be able to function around people again, those are two separate things, even though it could be considered the same type of traumatic event that happened. So the advice is going to be different. It's going to be based on what is it that the person is wanting. If they want someone to apologize, that could be possible. We could try to see if that's a possibility. But what if they're dead? What if they're not around? What if they don't want to have contact? What is a different approach or a different goal that you may want to have?
Okay. So Christine in real life has a question. She said, on dating apps, is it okay to have standards or things you aren't willing to deal with?
Absolutely. I strongly believe that everyone should have a non-negotiable list. And if anybody falls or has anything on that non-negotiable list, they disqualify themselves. And it's not even you saying, oh, I can't deal with them. No, they disqualify themselves because they don't meet whatever it is, a standard, a criteria that you have. It's important to have that because I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how fine a person is. If they have something on my non-negotiable list, it eventually will not work because my non-negotiables is a way of keeping me safe. It's a way of keeping me whole. It's a way that I feel the most like myself. Those are all things that matter first. So yes, have a standard. Don't deal with things that you don't want to deal with, especially in the dating app world.
Okay, so Lawrence Ritano said, Joseph, how old were you when you realized you wanted to be a counselor?
When I was 20, I would say like 21, when I was finishing up with undergrad. It was something that, because initially I was wanting to go to law school. And the only reason I wanted to do that was like, oh, you can make bank as a lawyer. But that's deep down after doing some soul searching, that's not what I wanted to do. And I love having conversations with people. I love to talk. Like I said, I used to get in trouble for talking too much in class. So being able to talk with people and also listen to their stories and stuff like that, and to be able to provide a way of healing, that's something that really sparked. And that came to, I was given the opportunity when I was working at that nonprofit organization, and it started happening. I started having opportunities where these skills were needed. So I was like, okay, I need to go and pursue that path. So it was when I was like 21 finishing up undergrad, but the opportunity and the realization came when I was in that community center working with the kids and the families every day.
Okay, so he has another question. Then it's time for you to go because I said I was going to do over just an hour. So, so have you ever counseled a gay married couple?
I have not, but I'm willing. I have no problem with that. If I was ever approached and they wanted counseling, it works for me.
That's your answer, Lawrence. So Joseph, do you, once again, I'm going to just thank you so much for coming on here and doing this interview with me. I hope you guys, y'all look him up as love.unscripted on Instagram. Make sure you guys follow Joseph. He is well, guys. He does have a podcast. Make sure you guys are listening to his podcast. He has a link to his podcast. Everything will be in the description box on in my description box. I have everything in my description box. So, Joseph, do you have anything else you would like to say before we end this live?
No, I just thank everybody for sharing, participating. I love conversation. And I think that's how we all grow in life is through conversation. So thank everybody for joining.
Right. Thank you guys for coming. If you guys have not hit that like button, hit that like button. And as well, guys, if you have not subscribed to this channel, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Y'all have a good night. And thank you again, Joseph.